Very good evening and welcome along to, UlsterWhiskey.com's Irish Whiskey Reviews to Infinity and Beyond. I have absolutely no idea what to Infinity and Beyond means, Marty. We've got a clock here because we've all the time in the world. Have you ever seen a clock like this before, have you?
I've never seen one like this, but I some week we'll do a thing on sort of whiskey ephemera, whiskey sort of branding stuff and that kind of stuff. And I'll bring in a lot of this kind of stuff because there's a lot of it about, and a lot of it's worth, it's worth some serious money.
Yes, if anybody can shed any light on this clock, which is Foals Whiskey, which is from the American Clock Company, believe it or not, big fancy thing in the back. I'm sure it's over 100 years old. If somebody knows what it is and can tell us a bit about it, because I did try and get one of the big auction houses to tell us about it, but I think they're all furloughed at the minute. I would say it's worth a few grand. And possibly is. Well, have you been watching Whiskey Week? Talking of watching things and clocks and all the rest of it.
I've been watching bits and pieces. I haven't had much time, to be honest. I've been kind of busy the last couple of days. I've been involved in manual labour for the last couple of days, Justin, and it hasn't sat well with me.
What have you been doing? I'm glad I didn't call down for that steak dinner because you would have got me roped into the manual labour. What have you been doing?
Building a greenhouse for my stepmother.
Okay, yeah.
And I had to not only level the ground, I had to put it all up and all of that kind of stuff. Now, I sort of quit manual labour a few years ago, and I've been trying to avoid it as deftly as I can. But I've been doing this.
That's what I like to hear. So you sort of missed the greenhouse season, but you have to get the plotted plants in around sort of Easter time, don't you? Sort of thing, yeah.
Well, there was some negotiations as to the person she was buying it off. So there was protracted negotiations, and I wish they'd been a bit more protracted. Then we could have got someone else to do this. But anyway, I wrote that here.
So, listen, when are you appearing at Belfast Whiskey Week then? Because the next time I talk to you, you'll have done your part. Yeah,
I'm doing on Monday. I'm doing the introduction to Irish whiskey. So there is 15 distilleries, 18 whiskies, on all day. There's gaps and there's breaks between. No one will have to endure me whittering away for a full 7 hours. So it's lots of the distilleries are coming on. Guys from the distilleries, people who have had their boxes sent out to them. They'll be able to join in. They'll be able to. The 18 whiskies, bit of a push, but you'll be able to get some flavour of what all's going on all day. So yeah,
I would imagine it's difficult to get stuff for it because it's basically sold out. Is it? I believe yes.
My gig's sold out. Yeah, there's still a few events over the Whiskey Week there's still a few packages left. Not everything's sold out. So if anyone wants to join in, anyone wants to join in for the last couple of days, it has to be people in Northern Ireland all the same. You can't do it in the US because there just wouldn't be time to get the boxes out. But in Northern Ireland, I think if you order it on Monday, you could get it again for the end of the week. So
okay. So listen, tell us what it is this week because I haven't a clue what this is all about this week. It's totally beyond me. I mean it to infinity and beyond. Are you baking sourdough and the stuff appears forever then afterwards?
Well, it's something kind of like that. But before I'm having a little one of these tonight. Okay.
Wow, that looks fabulous. Blackberry wine.
Blackberry wine. This was made for me by a mutual friend of ours, Petra, who I know watches, and she gave me this last week. So this is me just finishing this off. Okay, this
very nice indeed. Yes,
she brought me up last week. So she made this by herself. Now this is now finished. This is a key point in the whole thing. Now, to infinity and beyond. What I mean by that is, essentially, whiskey, if it's kept right, it's stored properly and looked after, basically lives forever. Okay? It doesn't tarnish or sour or whatever. So there's a number of things that you can do with this to your advantage. Okay? Now, I'm going to explain a few things prior to getting into all the sort of the more technical stuff, I should say. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, it's primarily a sherry thing, and it's called the Solera Method. Okay? Now, Solera comes from Spanish, it means on the ground. And what happens is, and this is obviously massively simplified, is you fill a barrel, okay? You fill one barrel with your sherry. So that's year one. So it ages a year, and then the next year you fill another cask. The next year you fill another one, and you move them on. So until, say, they are the first barrel is, say, 5 years old, okay? Then what you do is you empty half of that cask and bottle it and sell it. So it's a 5-year-old sherry. You then fill the 5-year-old cask, or the half of the cask that's left, you top it up with the 4-year-old sherry. The 4-year-old gets topped up by the 3-year-old, the 3-year-old by the 2-year-old, the 2-year-old by the 1-year-old, etc., 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 etc. Now, the idea of that is that the eldest cask is half filled with 6-year-old sherry and half filled with 5-year-old. So the average cask, the average age of that cask is always slightly higher than it necessarily should be, if you know what I mean. And that is to bring out lots and lots and lots of flavours out into the cask, to give it more of an age and to help flavour the older stuff in the barrel, imparts flavour compounds, flavours to the newer casks. You're always bringing it up to bring that little bit, half filling this cask all the time, and it drops down. Now, this is a method, it's very, very, very labour intensive, and as always, the more labour intensive it is, the more expensive it is. But this is really seen as being the best way of having sherry, aging it. Now, they do it with beer, they do it with vinegar, they do it with brandy, very expensive vinegar, they do it with brandy, wine, sherry, and they do it with whiskey as well. Not very common in the whiskey world, but it is done. So I've got a bottle of Glenfiddich Solera cask. Okay, now I'm using this. There's a reason I'm using this. Now, I'll get onto the more, how would you put it, the more appropriate stuff a bit later on. But I want to talk about this for a little bit because I find it very interesting. This is a 15-year-old whiskey, but remember, I told you before, 15-year-old is the youngest whiskey that's in this, so it's aged for 15 years. Now, what happened was, back in 1998, Glenfiddich built a Solera vat. Okay? Now, they filled it up with the 15-year-old, and it is, I better read the back of this because I actually forget what's on it.
I reckon you know it off pat word for word, Marty.
15-year-old bourbon, New York, and sherry casks. They then marry it and put it into the Solera vat. Now, the vat holds 37,000 litres of whiskey. It finished in there, it's taken out, it's finished, it ends up in another vat before being bottled. Now, that vat, since it was built in 1998, has never been emptied. It's only ever sort of half emptied. So you still have in there, probably in very small quantities, some of the very, very original whiskey that went in it. this is really good, actually. I'm not. I don't tend to be a huge fan of Glenfiddich, if I'm totally honest. I think the Founder's Reserve, which you'd find in most of the supermarkets, I think it's awful. This, on the other hand, is quite interesting. It does have, for a 15-year-old whiskey, it's got a very good age to it. It feels older, and it comes from that sort of, if you like, that imparting of flavours over from the very old stuff that's still in that vat, imparting over to the younger stuff that's coming in. So it's really, really, really good. It's got nice complexity to it, nice balance. And as I say, it's got this unique sort of sherry essence to it that's coming through, and it's really, really, really good. But it's this process, it's the Solera method, where you always retain that little bit of the very old stuff into the newer stuff, and it adds age.
So how does this actually work then, Marty? Does it mean there's a wee bit always left in it?
It kind of does. It means there's always some of the original whiskey that was put into that vat is always there. It always comes through. So you're always getting at least. I mean, I know these are fractions. I mean, tiny little bits, but it's this fractional blending that imparts a bit more age to what is essentially a 15-year-old whiskey. But you're talking, there's still going to be elements and traces and probably fairly deep, complex flavour compounds that are coming all the way from 1998. So, and as that goes on, it's going to get more and more complex.
How did they come up with this system, Marty? How did people discover that this would work? I mean, is this a thing to do with consistency?
Well, they've been doing this in Spain for a very long time with the cherries. So it's who come up with it, who knows? It's lost in the sort of mists of time. It's there.
Now, do all whiskies actually use this system, or only them particular ones that?
This is the only mainstream one that uses this method. It's called the Solera because this is a method that they've copied essentially from sherry. There's been other people doing this, but this is the one that you'll be able to get quite easily.
Now that surprises me because normally the main brands all jump on the bandwagon, and once one starts doing it, they all start doing it.
I think the thing about it is it's quite labour intensive, and you need to have the room to build another vat just to store that, then another vat to bring that out, and you have to double up on everything. Mm-hmm. So you have this. It's another industrial process, if you like, for the bigger distilleries. I can see this catching on and becoming much more of a thing, because this, as I say, this is good. I like this. Okay.
Do you think others should follow it then and do that? I mean, but obviously they have to have access, because that seems even more complicated than any other barrel system I've ever seen before in my life.
Yeah. I think they should. I definitely think it's worth doing, because it lends itself to having much more complexity, even in. I mean, 15-year-olds quite old. It's a reasonable age. So, but you are getting elements in there that are much older than that. Much older than that. So 15 years, it takes us back to 2005. You know that there's absolutely older parts in that have been in that vat. And the vat's made of oak. I read somewhere, because obviously I did a little checking on this. I read somewhere that it was Norwegian spruce, but it's not. It's on the website that it's oak. Now, oak is the casks that are made from oak, and the reason for that is that imparts flavour onto the whiskey. So there's bits in that have been going in and out of the cask for 22 years. So you know that it's getting more aging in this vat, and then obviously being able to go a bit further. So I like this. I think it's worth it.
Now, I've tried Soleras before, but it must have been a wine. I don't think it was an actual whiskey that I've tried. There's other things labeled Solera as well. Do they use that similar method as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's beers and vinegars that do it, etc., etc. And some of these have been doing this for a very, very long time. Now, I'll get on to a little bit more of that a little bit later. But you take it, some of the vinegars even would have been doing this for 100 years.
Is that like balsamic vinegar? Do they do that? I think I've maybe seen that Solera, but balsamic vinegar. I maybe imagine things. I must admit, when you come up with this vinegar, this infinity thing, I thought, what's he on about?
Well, I'll up the ante on it in a little minute, but I just say that this, if you imagine a company's been producing balsamic vinegar for 100 years and using this method, so long as that bottle isn't empty, there'll always be a little bit of the original stuff there, always, because it might just be in very, very trace amounts, but it's still there because it's almost impossible to get rid of. So you have some very, very, very deep, rich flavors just sitting there, and I think it's it'll explain why a lot of this is quite expensive. Whenever whenever you look at it, that this intensive method of swapping about barrels and casks is where the price is going to be.
Okay. Now, we'll go through some of the comments this week because they've been coming thick and fast. Let me see who's been saying hello. We're 17 minutes in already, Marty.
I know.
We're nearly a third of the way through it. Every week it goes faster and faster and faster. I almost think I'm in a time machine. Let me see what Brona Masoliver's saying. She's just saying hello. Julie Mason, hello to you, Brona. Waving. She looks like she's down the beach somewhere. Let me see. Julie Mason there this evening is saying hello. Evening, Marty and Justin. Evening to you, Julie. And let me see. Good evening, one and all, from Mark Kerr. Yes, welcome along, Mark. So, Mark, yes, Mark's agreeing with me. So there's some 20-plus-year-old whiskey in there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It seems to me it's a bit like cheese. It's the only game where you want the older the better.
You and I both like very extra mature cheddar cheese. There's the term mild cheddar cheese should be just struck from the English language. It's horrendous.
Yes, Patrick Connor saying hello as well. Good evening to you. And let me see. Last week we had our biggest week ever. We're heading towards the 5,000 mark in views.
No, Justin, you're a bit behind, son. We're heading towards 6,000.
Oh, we're heading towards 6,000 views. So I was out all day at Oxford Island, so I haven't.
What were you doing today while I was doing manual labour?
Sitting on my backside in Oxford Island, watching the boats go by. James Moira Doherty's been in touch. Remember, if you want to say hello, remember to comment, like, and share. Watch us on the main stream, which is ulsterwhiskey.com on Facebook, or Irish Whiskey Review as the short method of finding it. But James Moira Doherty is saying the GF Solera was designed by Mike Weber, brilliant man, RIP, and Dave Stewart, the malt master at Glenfiddich and Balvenie. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. We will get to Balvenie in a little minute. Now, that's the Solera cask at Glenfiddich. Now, you can see how that take up a fair amount of room. So some of the smaller distilleries are not, they just wouldn't have the facilities to do this kind of thing. And as James says, this was real good. This was really good. But I want to move on because this is blended by a professional. Okay, this is blended by experts. This is blended by me.
What? Hold on, you to put you on screen on your own because I want to see this. I didn't know this. You've kept this a secret. You've kept it.
Yes.
Hold Camera, hold it up to the camera.
This is my Infinity bottle. Okay?
Wow.
Right. Now, what do I mean by an Infinity bottle, Justin? This is in an old Balvenie bottle, and you'll see that I have written some stuff on it and so on and so forth. Because the reason of this Balvenie is probably Balvenie 12 is this particular bottle I've had for quite a considerable period of time, and it was one of the very first whiskies that I bought that wasn't Blackbush or something fairly cheap, if you like. I don't know. I'm not disparaging any of the sort of cheaper brands, but this is £36 a bottle, which at the time was me going, what they do. I tasted some more expensive whiskey than the normal, but I thought, right, I want to do this. I want to learn more about this. I want to sort of hone my craft, if you like. And this was one of the very first bottles that I bought. So this very bottle actually means something to me. Okay, it's important. Now, I drank it down to about here. Okay, knowing that was kind of the borderline. If it goes kind of below that, you might as well drink the rest of it, because the oxygen gets to hit it and kind of knocks it about a bit and kind of ruins it. So I kind of left it that it would be there. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have the heart to kill it off. Excuse me, 2 seconds. I didn't have the heart to kill this off. But what I can do is, because whiskey doesn't spoil, if I blend in this bottle, I will always, forever and ever, have a little bit of this liquid that came from this in this bottle. Okay? Now, we'll do a little bit of the sciencey bit in this, because I know people will go, oh, well, that's not particularly true, blah, blah, blah. Well, in one drop of water, okay? Now, I know whiskey's a more complicated substance than water, but to give you an idea, in one drop of water, there's 1.676 sextillion molecules. Okay? Now, the weight of the planet Earth is 6 sextillion tons. Okay? Which kind of puts it in scale. These are numbers that the human brain's not designed to cope with. Okay? We just aren't. A sextillion is a 1 with 21 zeros behind it. Okay?
Yeah, it's on screen there, by the way. I don't know whether you can see that. Yeah.
Now, we're very used to using the number like a million and occasionally the word billion. Okay? To put it in perspective, 1,000,000 seconds is just short of 12 days. Okay? So if someone says they're a millionaire, if you were counting a pound every second, that would take you nearly 12 days to count it. If someone says they're a billionaire, it takes you 32 years at a pound a second. Okay, so that's how many seconds. That's the difference between a million and a billion. So whenever someone says that Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates is worth like 70 billion, that gives you an idea of just how much money they're actually worth.
Yeah.
Now, a trillion, as it's on there, is 31,710 years. A sextillion is 1 billion times bigger than that. Okay?
Okay, yes.
That's in one drop of water. Okay? This probably had 150 milliliters left. So if you scale that up, it's impossible to even quantify how many molecules is in that bottle. Now, I know people will come on, because there's always someone says this. They don't always say this, but someone will say, "Oh, but whiskey's much more complex. There's not the." We'll not argue over a couple of 100 billion out of this, because it's not really. It's just an enormous number. This was filled up. I filled this up, but that residual amount of Balvenie is in this bottle. Okay. There's a couple of ways that you can do this, these infinity bottles. And I was talking to one of the distillers from one of the local distilleries there during the week. And he said, I haven't started an infinity bottle because I don't really know where to start. Well, what I did was, I'm not aiming to turn this into the nicest blend of whiskey in the world. That's not really what the purpose of this for me is, okay? The purpose for this for me is this will never run out, because although I've taken a little bit out of it, I will top this up once it goes down a little bit further. I'll top it up with something else. This for me is about memories, okay? That bottle of Balvenie will always be in here. And what I did was, what I do, because this appeals to the total nerd in me, right, is I have a book. And this is basically a diary. And when I started with this as the base bottle, I opened it up, I wrote out where I had got my Balvenie from, when I got it, what it meant to me, etc. Who I had let taste out of this, all of these little memories. It gets brain jogging, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I then had this little miniature, okay? Now you see the little boat? This would be like something you seen the day while I was out grafting and building greenhouses.
That's the Waverley. I've been on the Waverley, yes.
Yes. I bought this as a miniature of the boat. It's got the whiskey bar on it. So I poked down, had a couple of reasonably good whiskies, and bought a little miniature for myself. But the problem was the neck fill had started to drop a little bit. So if I had left it a few years, it turns around, there's very little left in it, and basically it's just a bottle. However, what I did, I put it in here. I poured it in. I then, and this jogs your memory again, I wrote in this about the day out I had on the Waverley, which I went with some family, went down, we had a great day. The weather wasn't great, but I got to see the engine in the Waverley is just something. It's just amazing. It's beautiful.
Yes, it's a work of art itself.
Absolutely. I mean, anyone that doesn't know what the Waverley is, it's a paddle steamer. It's an ocean-going paddle steamer, and it used to plough its trade up and down the Clyde, taking people like Billy Connolly when they were kids. Used to go on days out on the Waverley. Now it's the last of those paddle steamers that's still in existence. So I wrote up about my stuff about the Waverley in this. I then got this, which is just it's a bottle. I opened a live on this a few weeks ago, and I kind of thought, right, well, this sort of means a bit of something to me, because I started doing these shows, opened this. I'll put a drop of that in it. I'll put that in. All of these bottles that are here mean something to me. Okay? Now, people will go, Redbreast 21 in an infinity bottle? Yeah. There's a story behind that. I'm not going to delve into all of these because some of it's quite personal.
Okay,
but
yeah.
Bottles that are bought to you or bought for you for, say it's for a birthday, you can put that in, and you'll always have a little bit of that in this forever.
Does it work? Does it work, Marty? Does it work? Do you ruin what's left, or are you helping preserve what's left by not letting the oxygen get to it because the bottle's full?
Exactly. But the idea of this, Justin, is, for me, I'm not a blender. There's lots of people out there take a different view of this, doing an infinity bottle. They'll detect that there's some very light, sort of, once they have a sort of idea of what they want to put in it and they've bottled up, they'll think, well, I've taken a few half ones out of that. It's quite estery, it's quite green, it's quite, it's got sort of apple fruits in it. What we'll do is we'll maybe go and take another light whiskey to try and bring that out. See, blending's a very, very, very complicated thing. What you're trying to do is create something better than the sum of its parts. Excuse me, I need to take a drink. So you have to. You're trying to create something better than the sum of its parts, and that becomes a real skill and an art. So someone may take an infinity bottle, and they'll have a very sort of clear idea of what they want to put in it. They'll want to keep it quite light, keep it quite fresh. Maybe slowly put in a couple of measures of something that's a rum cask finish or something to try and open that up and give it that sweet sort of sugary flavour to complement something else that they've taken in it or whatever. And that's one way of doing it. For me, I'm not really all that concerned about how this ends up tasting. It may not be very good, but I can keep doing it. I can keep going on. This bottle can be with me to the end of my days. And it might by accident come out and go, that's actually really, really good.
But you won't remember how you made it, Marty. You have the book.
But the point is, for me, this book's more important than what's in that bottle. Because this book tells the story of it. And I've mentioned this a lot of times before. The point of whiskey as a spirit, whiskey's not vodka. It's not that just to go and get drunk with. It's certainly not at this kind of level. It's about experience. It's about memories. It's about having a drink with you in Lagavulin, having had a wonderful day out. It's kind of thing that you're trying to remember about why you enjoy some of these. I have a couple of whiskies that I don't particularly like the flavour of, but I've had them with people, or I've had an experience with people, or I was given it by someone, or it's that kind of memory that you really can put into a bottle. And I think there's something really quite, if I'm being totally honest, quite romantic about the fact that I can have a bottle of whiskey that my dad bought me, and there'll always be a little bit of it in that bottle, always.
I must admit, it does have enormous sentimental value. I can see enormous sentimental value can become attached to that bottle. That's what that would mean for me, because I know somebody has one of the last rums that was bought on board a Royal Naval vessel. You know that is it Pussy rum or something, or Pusey rum, or and they've kept it and they've kept it and they've kept. And you know what? The silly bugger never got to drink it.
That's the way.
He never got to drink it. That's the way it goes. Whereas you're always drinking it.
Well, this here, you can always drink this. I mean, even if you put 10 mil in this, it's in it. And it'll always be in it. And you can have that written up in a book and have it as a story to tell yourself, or a memory and all that kind of stuff. I kind of regret I got a little bottle of a man that I really, really, really respected, who came up to me one day and he said, I was given a bottle of whiskey and I never thought very much about it. I had it in a cupboard, and I come home one day, me and a friend were out fishing, and we came home one day and we were cold and wet, and I cracked it open and had a half or two out of it, and I have it sitting up there. I only found out after the fact, a considerable period after the fact, that he had an 18-year-old bottle of Macallan that had been bottled in the 1970s or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He found out it's probably worth about £2,000.
Right.
And he cracked it open, he warmed the old cockles, and it was and then he turned around and presented me with a miniature of it, and he says, "Here, take it with you and tell me what you think."
Right.
And that's a mutual friend of our owners, Dr. Jonathan Barden.
Yeah.
And he gave it to me. He unfortunately lost his life to coronavirus earlier on in the year.
I would imagine there's an awful lot of people have that sort of bottle in their back cupboard sitting there somewhere, and they might be glancing through the internet at the minute and see this and go, Oh, I can buy a new boat. You know?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I regret not having had that and putting even a drop in this, and then I could have wrote it in the story. You know, it could
Yeah.
have been part
I,
of the bottle.
I'm with you. I'm with you. A couple of people are commenting. If you'd like to join in tonight, always comment, like, and share at the Irish Whiskey Review Stroke Live page. Let me see what Mark Kerr's saying tonight. Mark Kerr saying, "I'll have to pick a bottle now." Yes. What should you start with, Marty? If you're going to do this and do your own Infinity bottle, what should you start with?
What I would start with is something of reasonable quality that's not particularly heavily flavored. Something quite subtle.
Okay.
So don't be starting with a very heavy sherry bomb whiskey, or don't be starting with a very heavy peated whiskey. There's a reason I have this sitting out, okay? Okay. This is McMyra, the Swedish whiskey, and this was bought to me as a present after I had finished doing the Blue Badge Tourist Guide exam. So that to me after I'd left my job, etc., etc. This was bought as a gift for basically it sums up to me an entirely new career direction and a whole new, basically a new life in many ways. But it's quite heavily peated. Now, if I put that into my Infinity bottle, all I'll taste is peat. So what I would advise against, and again, this is entirely up to whoever it is that's making this. This is your bottle. This is your blend. This is your um, investment, if you like. I would advise not to put in any of your Lefroigs, your Ardbegs.
Nothing too peaty. Then you're basically saying.
I would avoid, if I'm totally honest, I doubt if PE will ever go in this because it just overpowers pretty much everything. By the same token, I probably won't ever put a bourbon in it. I will put in some of the non-peated Scotches and Irish, and I think that's probably all I'll put in that.
Mark Kerr saying he loves, is that the Swedish one, the McMara?
That's really, really, really good. Again, it's one of those ones that's quite a surprising whiskey. People. I mean, we talked about this.
Sweden's vodka country. Finland and Sweden's still vodka country, isn't it? More usually.
More so, but they are making whiskey and making really good quality whiskey. But we were talking about this last week about all these new countries that are making lots and lots of whiskey, and it's head spinning to try and keep up with just how much they're making.
Right. I must admit, do you think the 6,000 viewers, near double the average, do you think it was down to the fact that we covered so many countries last week and we reached out to people and people heard their country mentioned when it was comment, liked and shared around the world?
Justin, this is in the realms of the imponderable. I didn't think we'd get any more than about 50 people coming on to slag us off. Now we're getting thousands of people. I thought there would be very few people coming on, but we're getting these thousands of people watching this every week.
I told you knew your stuff. You see, I told you a couple of years ago you should do this, and you kept on putting it off and putting it off. And I mean, I must admit, I'm learning wonderful things about whiskey that I never knew, and getting to try fantastic stuff. This sort of thing. I've been around distilleries and breweries before and heard it before, but there is thousands of years of expertise going into some of these ideas and concepts, isn't there?
Yeah, well, there is, and I mean, I like drinking whiskey. I love whiskey, but it's much more than that. And okay, some rums do it, fair enough, but whiskey is a different animal than pretty much any other alcoholic drink. Possibly Guinness is it's a slightly different concept, but you can bring in lots of different stories behind it, different methods of it, that sort of the geography of the whole thing, etc., etc. And it's just a different story, and that appeals to me on a totally different level. You know,
Is it down to the mystique and cachet behind it that drives people's interest in whiskey forward, or what is it?
I think the thing about it is you have totally different flavor profiles. You essentially have stuff from like very weak tea to things that are like treacle. I mean, I've a bottle over there which it's actually an Auchentoshan, which is like nearly jet black. It's very very it's a cask strength. Left it straight out of a cask in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's given to me as a present, but it's quite complex. I doubt if it will end up in this, but it's really really good. But you have this. I mean, this is whiskey, and it tastes nothing like this. Nothing. So whenever I hear people saying, "I don't like whiskey," well, you haven't tried the right one. There's such a range of flavors that you can just play with them, and you can really, really make them zip. There's different ways of drinking them. People have them on cocktails, and I know there's loads of people go, "Oh, you can't put ice in it, and you can't put." And if it's your drink, you do what you want with it. In my opinion, I personally, I would prefer just the raw product. Sometimes with a little drop of water, but when you drink it, you're buying into a story and a narrative and a geography and all of that and that history, and especially if you drink it with someone that you care about. I mean, if you take it that you have Redbreast 21, this is an expensive whiskey. I mean, this is best part of £200.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's I mean, if you order a drink of that, it's you've a couple of 20 quid notes, so you might as well buy the bottle for yourself. Mark Kerr, one of our top fans, is saying memory Solar rather than a flavor Solera. what's he getting at? Yeah.
I mean, he's talking about this being a memory bottle, and that's what it is for me. I know guys who are have their Infinity bottles, and what they're doing is they are trying to become amateur blenders to try and bring out what they think will be something that really appeals to them. I personally don't see how that would work for me. It's just not something that I would do. I much rather have it in my book. This is more important than that. And I think it's as you go through a whiskey journey, which I know is a bit of a cliche, but as you're going through this kind of thing, this tells a story. And if I live for another 50 years, I can still have this bottle. And the very glass that it's in actually means something to me. And there's other stuff behind all of this, and I wouldn't go into it because it's quite personal. And there's other stuff that's quite personal as well. And there's a reason for all of that, and that's to me much more important than what this actually tastes like. I don't want it to taste horrific, so I won't put in anything that I think would sour the whole bottle. So that's why I wouldn't put peat in it. Nor would I put in a really, really heavy sherry bomb whiskey in it, because it would just dominate the thing too much. So just a few simple rules, and this can last me forever. And I can taste the history of the whole thing every time I take a sip.
Yep, we're getting some great messages in tonight. I think I don't know whether this guy's been involved before. Yelfair, how cool! Endless stories in a bottle, a bit Arabian Nights. I would imagine it is. It's a bit like when you started talking. There's a bit like a salty old sea dog drinking out of a bottle and reminiscing about stuff, Marty.
This is it. I mean, what's the point of having stuff like this if it's not about building memories and about building that? I mean, the important as you get older, and I'm obviously an awful lot older than you, Justin.
Yes, you do look it. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to wear my toupee next week to make sure.
You need your hat on again. You need your hat on again.
Well, I have my hat there, but I didn't put it on. But caught a bit of the sun today. I was down at Oxford Island.
Yes, I was in Cardiff building a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Hands. Anyway, but as you get older, you do get more sentiment. You do kind of hark back to this old sort of halcyon days as a kid, and and it all does, it starts to mean more, and yeah.
I'm going to ask the question. We were talking today about Buckfast at Oxford Island for some strange reason, because they were going to run out of it in Lurgan because of the lockdown. What was your first drink? I would say the first drink I had a drink of was maybe a whiskey or maybe a sherry. What did you first have a drink of? A beer or something like that there?
My first drink was vodka.
Vodka.
I remember. I remember drinking vodka out of a Lucozade bottle when I was about 13. I'm not proud of this, kids. I do want to say something before we go tonight, because I think but I was about 13 and I had vodka out of a Lucozade bottle. I thought it would put me off drinking for the rest of my life, but well, it didn't.
All right. You spoiled good Lucozade for me, because I love Lucozade, actually. Got to say hello to a couple of other people watching tonight. Let me see. Ewell Price is watching tonight. Hello to you, Ewell. And Peter McCabe as well. Sherman Wright. Brenda Russell as well. Trevor Watson as well. Good evening to you. But somebody's angry. It's maybe because we're promoting drink. Which has probably hit the wrong thing by mistake, as you do. They're all awfully close together, and my big fat fingers hit the wrong thing. If you'd like to get in touch with us and ask Marty any question about whiskey tonight, we're talking Infinity, which is basically the fact that the way the Solera method goes is you always have a little bit of the original whiskey in the bottle, the same way as you do with bread that's made with the sort of sourdough method, that 1,000,000 years old or something like that. There, it's a rather curious way. Do you think scientists try to recreate the Solera method by analysing it, Marty?
Well, there is a new thing which I've read up on quite recently about artificial aging of whiskey.
Using laser beams? Using laser beams is it?
Quite possibly. Using laser beams and I don't know, the Large Hadron Collider or whatever it is. There's some method that they say they can bring in these heavy compounds, these different compounds. It probably works quite well to a point. So I think you'll start to see a lot more experiment as these new whiskey distilleries appear all across the world. You're going to start seeing an awful lot more of this kind of thing,
Yes, I must admit that science tries to sort of scientific expertise trying to match sort of expertise that you can't learn from a book, sort of thing. I think, yeah. Peter McCabe says no hats this week, please. He doesn't want me to put on a hat. That's a good move.
Yeah. Yes. I don't put on the hat.
No. I won't put on the hat. Maybe that's why we lost listeners, viewers week before. They thought it was hats. Let me see. What's this saying? If you ever pass this way, Marty, I will let you try my 50-year-old Glenfiddich distilled the year I was born. Most people get a newspaper from the year they're born. Where does Mark Kerr live? Google it and see. Where does he live?
I don't know, but I hear the sound of diesel going in my car.
Would that be one that you would have to try? I mean, that's 50-year-old. I mean, that's 1968, is it, or something like that? Is it? No, 19. I'm not very good at working back the way, Marty.
Your numeracy is not great, Justin. It's 1970, buddy.
Oh, is it? All right. Is it? Well, 1970. What would that be like? What would that be like?
I should imagine it would be. It would have a very, very, very long finish to it.
Here, he's given us the exact. He's maybe Mark. Whatever you do, don't type the postcode in here because we'll get struck off by Facebook. Don't type your postcode in. But he's typing in the year 1957.
Oh,
1957. Marty's ordering a taxi as we speak now. 1957.
I've nearly got on the bike.
Yeah, it's you'd get there in time for Sunday breakfast. 1957. Wow, now that's some whiskey. What?
Someone cares about you quite a lot, my friend. Well done.
Right? Yes, that's a lovely thing. That is a lovely thing.
See, this is what I mean about whiskey. This is why you can buy these and you can buy stuff like this and have it forever. And that's why I have a few bottles in there that are they're well up. I have a bottle that my great aunt had, a bottle of Royal Salute 21. Where she got it from, I have no idea, because she drunk a baby sham in like 1978 and she's still suffering from a hangover.
Right.
She says to me, here, I have this, do you want it? Do you want to take it with you? And I have it. And I've never opened it. But it's that kind of thing that it means something. It's important. And when I do eventually crack it open, every single time I take a little sip of that, I'll think of my aunt.
This one was bought for Mark Kerr's 50th birthday.
Yeah.
Now, Marty, you can't see it because it's so small, right? I want you to guess how much a bottle of that costs. Have a guess. Now, you haven't typed it in for you or anything like that. I'm not speaking in your ear, but how much did that cost? It's very small there.
I don't know. I'm going to say £1,500.
Wow, that is pretty much on the money. Well, let me see. We'll put the solo on. There we go. 1,650 quid.
I thought I was going to make myself look like an idiot. Again.
Look at that there. Mark, you're a very lucky man. I can tell you that much. That there for your 50th
I'm quite proud of myself for that, actually.
Is absolutely a fantastic present to have. Yeah. Listen, if you're talking about Infinity, right, and we talked about the investments last week, and the people bringing whiskey out, to be exclusive.
Excellent.
A bit like people wanting to be exclusive, and they're bringing these things out that are just exclusive, right? What would you buy now that isn't exclusive that's going to be worth that kind of money in 50 years' time? 2070. Predict for us tonight.
If I was, there's lots of batch number ones coming out of the Irish distilleries at the minute, and that's why you asked me the other day about the Waterford distillery bringing out back. Did I get a bottle of it? No, because it was just snapped up like that. That'll probably be worth a reasonable amount of money, but there are bottles floating about at the minute, single cask stuff that is Dunville's PX, the 12-year-old PX cask strength. It'll be worth a fair whack, I don't know, in a few years' time. And there's a few other bottlings about that probably would end up being that. But Irish whiskey doesn't have 50. I would doubt if there's a 53-year-old cask of Irish whiskey in existence. Now, there's a very, very, very few of them. Yeah. So you'll have to wait 50 years before you can get a 50-year-old one, probably.
Okay, I'm with you.
Maybe. You know what I mean? There just really doesn't exist.
Right. So we've got about 5 minutes left tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a excellent sort of review into the Infinity Solera Method. In the last 5 minutes, if you'd like to ask Marty any questions, always get in touch through the main page, which is facebook.com/Irish Whiskey Review Live. That's the best way to see us and get in touch with us. Listen, Mark, she says, was around 300 at the time, was bought by my wife and daughter as a combined birthday and Christmas present. Very, very, very good. Yes.
Is that not a better Christmas present? Is that not a much better present than buying, I don't know, a pair of socks and a shirt? You know, I mean, what a present. What a nice thing to get.
Well, you know, you can spend £300 in a Gore-Tex jacket. Now, it used to be when you bought a Gore-Tex jacket, you still had it in 30 years' time. But now when you buy a Gore-Tex jacket, you're lucky you have it in 2. You know what I mean?
That's the sponsorship deal with Gore-Tex out the window, Justin.
No, I'm not worried. If Gore-Tex want, this isn't a camping video. If we did camping videos, I would be saying Gore-Tex is brilliant. But if you notice, we're always honest about the whiskies.
We do. We try to be as honest as possible. I mean, it is basically down to personal taste and all that kind of stuff. But when you're getting bought a present that you can actually, I think there's something totally different about having something that's you can taste and ingest. That in that regard, whiskey's kind of unique because you can have it for years and years and years and years and years, and Mark can taste it, can have a little bit of his birthday present for 20 years, you know, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that is wonderful. Right, before we go, I want you to run through sort of. I don't know whether there's anything left because I looked and it's almost completely sold out, right? But you mightn't be able to do the tasting. But Belfast Whiskey Week is on at the minute. We have been lucky enough to be able to see some of the stuff. You're in it, of course. Explain to me what you're doing, when you're doing it, and if people can find something that's left there, they might be able to get the stuff in time, and they'll also be able to see your presentation because. I mean, yours is going to be one of the best. I mean, are you on for 8 hours or something like that, Marty?
I think it's 7. Now, I do have to have a couple of breaks. There's a few other bits and pieces happening during that 7 hours. It's not just me whittering away annoying, basically annoying people for 7 hours. No, it's going to be. There'll be some music. There's lots of distilleries. So this is on Monday. Now, there will be a sort of after thing, if you like, where people will be able to see some stuff that happened during the festival later on. As it stands, there is still some boxes left for later on in the week. They obviously finish off before the 1st of August.
Yeah.
And still some stuff. If people want to go on, it's only people from Northern Ireland, unfortunately, because there's just not enough time to get the other stuff out. Lots and lots of exclusive stuff, things that are totally unique to the festival. And as I say, hopefully this is only the second year of this. And whenever you see what has been put on, I mean, there are people who have just pulled out all the stops for
I tell you what, they were trying the Redbreast tonight, and obviously we get treated to Redbreast sometimes. I've had it, the 12 and the 21 at the top of the observatory at the Grand Central Hotel, and I think I told you this before, that we went in and we sat down, and they said, "What should we have?" And they wanted to get something from down south, and I says, no, listen, get the Redbreast, get the Redbreast, you'll be flying away with it. And they basically hadn't had it before, right? Okay. Notice I didn't diss the brand that they were going to get in case they do want to sponsor it. But they says they were over the moon. Do you know they bought they actually wanted to buy the coach driver some of it. And I says, no, he's driving the coach. That's maybe not a good idea. And
Redbreast, I love this bottle. This Redbreast 21. It's fabulous stuff. Absolutely wonderful. And as a quality product, that this is quite expensive, but it's not unobtainable. People can save up and buy this. It's a couple of hundred, about £150 to £170 a bottle.
Yeah.
Well, this holds very special sort of memories for me, this particular bottle. And that's why it ends up in the Infinity bottle. And it goes.
Well, Joe McGowan was doing the tasting there tonight, and it was absolutely fascinating. That's Belfast Whiskey Week. We have got to leave it there because we overrun tonight, as usual. We forgot about the time. I better say some of these mentions to some of these other people before we go. Mark Kirstein, thanks again for a fantastic talk and a fantastic idea. Infinity Bottles, excellent idea. Also enjoyable and educational as always. Thanks, you guys. There's Frank Hearn. I wonder if he's still in Fermanagh. Is he? He's probably doesn't want to say he's in Fermanagh in case we turn up at his chalet. And I have a 4.5 litre with a small amount left. It's going to be Infinity and Beyond. There you go. He's picked one. Yes. To Infinity and Beyond. I think Toy Story will be soonest now because we said Infinity and Beyond, but I think that's been said before. All right. A very good evening, Marty. Catch you soon.
Okay, guys.
I'll talk to you again soon. All right. Night.
Take care, guys.